Okay, so like I said before, we are talking about overcoming barriers in personal finance education. And really quickly, before we jump in, make sure that you're following us on all of our different social media platforms. We're announcing new content all the time on these platforms, as well as sharing what conferences we'll be at and announcing things like this webinar, trying to reach more teachers and get more involved.
Yeah, and we have some exciting stuff going on. Like she said, over the summer, we're going to be doing some exciting stuff. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and we are often doing things like giveaways too. Recently we did a Teacher Appreciation Week giveaway. Those kinds of things you'll see a lot more of. So feel free to follow us. We'd love to see you on social. And then once more, if you have any questions or audio issues, go ahead and add them to the Q&A. And then at any time, feel free to follow us on social media. You can also message us if you have any issues with Banzai or any questions. You can email us at support@banzai.org or message us on those social media platforms.
And as some of you hopefully saw, as a thank you for all of us to attending our first ever webinar here for teacher development, we're going to be giving out 3 $50 gift cards to Amazon at the end of this. So please make sure you hang on till the end so that we can send you all the info about that. Okay.
Okay, so just once more, my name is Nicole. I am the Director of Education. And my main goal and role here at Banzai is to make sure that we're creating curriculum that works for you and what you need in the classroom, and that we're giving you the right tools and the right technology to actually make an impact with your students. That's my whole goal. So if there are issues or if there are questions or if there are ideas, please reach out and share them with me. I'd love to hear from you. And same with Mallory. So I don't know, Mallory, do you have anything to update us about?
Yeah, we have, I guess just as a little teaser, we have a bunch of new games that are going to be coming out and some exciting new changes coming out for the beginning of next school year. So we hope that you guys have a really great summer, take some time to relax from a long year. And then when you come back, we're excited to see you with a bunch of new and exciting content. More info on that coming as it gets closer, obviously.
Okay, so the first thing we wanted to start with is just a few questions. We'll give y'all, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes to answer these 3 really quick questions, and we'll share the results. Everyone should be able to see them. So,
let's see our first poll.
yep.
Here.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just read them over while we go. We can have you guys fill them out. The first one is, I know the personal finance requirements for my state/district. Yes, no. Would you all say that's true? I know how to engage my students in the topic of financial literacy. Definitely, kind of, not really. And then the final one is, I know what makes a quality classroom resource. I know what to look for. I feel really confident that I can find classroom resources that are really good, or I'm not sure. I would love some more guidance on that. And yeah, we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to fill that out. These are some questions that we wanted to start with because we're going to kind of use them to form the rest of what we're talking about. And also, frankly, we love hearing from teachers and we really want to know, how things are going with you guys and what your biggest concerns are.
Yeah, we talk to a lot of teachers at conferences. Our support team is talking to teachers every day. And so we kind of have an idea of some of the barriers and obstacles that you guys are experiencing, but at the same time, we are just so interested in your experience. And yeah, that's why we wanted these questions to kind of start out.
Cool. Well, I think we can go ahead and end those and then check out the results. Okay, so it looks like a little over 50% of you guys feel confident that you know the personal finance requirements for your state/district, which is awesome. We're really excited about that, but we would love to have that number a little closer to, 100% ideally. Next, I know how to engage my students on the topic of financial literacy. A very middling response. Hopefully we can give you guys some resources throughout this that will help you guys feel a little bit more confident about that, be able to answer yes 100%. And then I know what makes a quality classroom resource. Awesome. We love to see that this is going really well. We'd love to continue to chat with you guys to see what you are looking for in classroom resources. And for the 27% of you who don't feel confident about that, we hope to give you guys some guidance throughout this webinar to help you find some more resources and know what to look for when looking for them. Okay, so based off of those things, we are going to be talking about resource limitations, teacher preparedness and training, and engaging students in the FinLit classroom, kind of all the things that we were just talking about. So first, according to a poll by the National Endowment for Financial Education, NEFI, momentum in financial education is totally unprecedented right now, particularly in K through 12 policy. 25 states have or are about to implement policy that requires some sort of financial literacy education for these students. So that means roughly 40% of high school students are required to take some kind of a financial literacy course. In that same survey, they did some questions for adults as well. 88% of adults think that personal finance should be a graduation requirement, and 80% of adults wish they'd been required to take personal finance course. So clearly this movement has momentum. Clearly it's important, but there are some barriers that are stopping it from just being like, oh yes, and now every student in America has quality financial literacy education. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. And so we want to go over some of those barriers today and help you guys overcome them, or at least find strategies to help overcome them and make implementing them as easy as possible.
Okay, so I wanted to start out just talking about resource limitations. There are a lot of schools that don't even have personal finance curriculum or a personal finance course. Teachers are sometimes thrown into personal finance. They have to integrate it into another subject. They're teaching math or they're teaching economics and they need to start teaching personal finance. There's also obviously time constraints. I'm sure all of you are feeling that. Feeling just there is not enough time in the year to hit every standard and to get everything in the classroom. And then also there's some inconsistency or there's not clear standards. There are a lot of states where financial literacy is required. There are a set of standards, but then there's no testing or way to implement or audit a school. So that might be the case for you. So it just feels like a little inconsistent. And those are some of the things we'll talk about. So when it comes to resource limitations, one way that we can overcome that is by online curriculum access. I'm sure all of you are using some kind of online element. If not, that's great too. But there's a lot of resources out there for financial literacy. And there's also a lot of standards. There's national standards and your state standards that if you can align with, it'll help you develop your curriculum. So when it comes to vetting online resources, there are a few things to keep in mind. And again, seems like most of y'all are pretty confident, so that's great. But if you're not feeling that confident, here's some things that you can consider. The first is cost. How much is this resource going to cost? Is it going to cost the district? Is it going to cost your school? Is it going to cost you personally? There are a lot of free resources, so there's no reason that any teacher should be paying for financial literacy curriculum in the classroom. And obviously from Banzai is free, but there's a lot out there. And then also privacy. Does it align with your school or district privacy policy or your state privacy policy? I'm sure you've all heard of COPA or FERPA. It's really important that when using an online resource, it doesn't collect your students' personal data. And if it does collect your students' personal data, that it is well protected and that that organization or application has an agreement with your district so that, everyone knows that the student's data is protected. For Banzai personally, our kind of rule of thumb is the best way to protect student data is not to collect it. So we only collect the bare minimum for a functioning app, usually a username. But we can dive more into our privacy policy if y'all want to. We can do that later, or it's live on our site, of course. So the third part of vetting an online resource is, does it align with state or district standards? So for Banzai, that kind of looks like this. You can click on your state and open a document to see the ways in which Banzai aligns with your state's personal finance or digital citizenship or even career planning curriculum standards. So that's really helpful if you have a sheet like this when you're vetting online resources that you can then take to a curriculum director or even just know within yourself, these are the standards I'm supposed to be hitting, and this resource is helping me hit them. So look for resources that have something like that. If your state has, oh, actually, first let's do this. So we're going to ask one more poll. This is all about Jumpstart, and you'll see kind of how this relates to standards soon. But have you heard of Jumpstart? And do you use the Jumpstart resources? And yeah, we'll give you, I don't
Just
know,
a
like
few
a
minutes.
minute.
Yeah, here to fill this out. You guys can't see the answers yet, but we can see the answers popping up, and this is very surprising to me. So this is awesome.
Mallory, I like audibly gasped.
So yeah, let's go ahead and stop it, and then we can show everybody the results that we got so far.
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, Jumpstart is a coalition for financial literacy. They have developed with the Council for Economics Education, they've developed national financial literacy standards. Those standards are not adopted federally. There's no law that schools have to be implementing these standards, but they're a nationwide set of curriculum standards for financial literacy that a lot of states have modeled their standards from, or that are really comprehensive. So if teachers aren't sure what to do, they can always lean on that. But we'll talk more about Jumpstart in a minute. The reason that Mallory was so surprised is we are talking about Jumpstart a lot. We're finding financial literacy teachers through the Jumpstart avenues a lot. And so it's eye-opening to us to see so many teachers not knowing about Jumpstart and all the resources that they provide.
Yeah, like she said, we will talk a little bit more about Jumpstart here in a second, but I would just, as a beginning, highly, highly recommend using their resources. They have some great, even just like teacher support systems, but also resources that can help you have your best class possible and teach financial literacy in ways that are interesting and exciting for your class.
Yeah. And we are a Jumpstart Coalition partner, but there's probably a lot of other resources that you might have heard of or used that are also partners. And we get together every year to just see what the direction of financial literacy is in the nation and work together, kind of put aside our competitive differences to make sure that we're providing the best resources for teachers. Anyway, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about it. Oops. So like I said, Jumpstart has a lot of resources. Mallory was talking about this as well. They have what's called their clearinghouse. And let me just make this super clear right now. We get nothing from Jumpstart.
No.
They don't even know we're talking about it. We basically pay them to be in the coalition, if anything.
Yeah.
You know, this is a partnership of like-minded organizations. This is not like, we're not getting anything. I'm not trying to
Sell
make
you
an
on
ad,
anything.
but it is a really helpful resource that I want teachers to know about. So this clearinghouse is a database of financial education resources, and you can curate it by grade, by how much it costs, by if it's online or not, all sorts of different filters, so that you can find the resources that are helpful for you in your classroom. And that's jumpstartclearinghouse.org. There's also the National Educators Conference. Mallory and I attended last year, and we're going this year as well. That is just a super, super fun conference. We are providing the scholarship for 3 teachers this year, who I believe are already selected, but Jumpstart is giving out a lot more scholarships, and they are still open and accepting applications. So the NEC is super fun. It's in Louisville. I don't know for sure what we're going to be doing, but I bet we'll go to Churchill Down and like
Do some fun
fun stuff. But there's also really good classes, workshops. There's professional development opportunities throughout the entire thing. And then of course, like great networking.
Yeah, and just to be clear, NEC itself is all scholarship provided. So no teacher has to pay conference fees in order to attend NEC. That's the whole point. It's really Jumpstart builds it as like a celebration of teachers. This is your chance to get together, talk about you know, all the things that you've struggled with, get some answers from other teachers, really just connect with teachers from all over the nation, and also, frankly, have a lot of fun. So
Yes, that's true.
we really love NEC. We would love to see anybody here that is interested at NEC. It's a great time.
Yeah. And then finally, those national standards I was talking about, these are very comprehensive standards. So if you're unsure where to start with curriculum or where to build your curriculum around, these national standards are extremely helpful. They cover like a broad set of categories. They can be somewhat specific, but honestly, just really helpful to teachers to kind of know and understand what a student, the age and grade of their students is kind of expected to know within the broader national financial literacy education system. So, oh, here's an example of those standards, and you can download them anytime. They update them every now and then, and they have a big team of experts. And like I said, they work with the Council for Economic Education, so they're really building these together.
All right, the next problem that we're going to talk about is teacher preparedness and training. As an educator, you may not feel fully prepared or ready to teach about financial literacy. Many teachers don't have specific training in financial literacy, or frankly, may not have the confidence in their own to be like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my finances. I know I've been there a million times. I feel like we all have. How can I teach someone else what they need to be doing and what they need to be talking about? Financial literacy is proven to improve kids' future financial decisions, but other subjects and pressures can also help just make that difficult. Like, we know financial literacy is important, but there's so much else going on that how do we make the time to teach it? So with that in mind, we have one more poll to go over, which is just to ask all of you guys, do you teach more than just personal finance? So that could include, do you have additional classes that you're also teaching? Personal finance is a part of like a broader, larger subject that you're teaching. Maybe it's just a section in one class. Is personal finance lumped into something like math or economics? Things like that. Or maybe
social studies.
Yeah, or maybe you're a teacher that has, you know, only dedicated personal finance classes and that's all that you teach. So we'll give you guys like another minute or so to fill this out. Okay, great. Let's take a look at those results. I'm sure this will surprise none of you because you're the ones doing the teaching. But yeah, about 83% of you are not dedicated only teaching personal finance classes. And I don't mean that in any way to be like, and that means that you don't know what you're talking about or anything like that. It's just clearly you guys have so much else on your time, so many other competing priorities. You're strapped. How can you give this topic the attention that it deserves and help your students when you have so much else going on? That's what we hope to help go over today. So, teacher preparedness and training. We want you guys to lean really hard on the expert. If you don't feel personally confident in some of these financial topics, maybe you don't know all of the details of 401ks or investing, or you know, some of those more intimidating topics, lean on the curriculum, find things that can be the expert for you, and then do just what you're doing today. Seek out online training and personal development opportunities. So first, this idea of making your curriculum the expert. You don't have to be the expert. You just have to find people that you can lean on to help teach you things. Many curriculum solutions are available and you can learn alongside your students. And honestly, one of the biggest things is just being open about things and being like, you know, I may not know the answer about that, but I would love to look it up. We can figure it out together. Honestly, one of the biggest things with personal finance is acknowledging that like, this is a big, scary area that's going to be impacting you for the rest of your life. Let's learn how to learn about it and let's figure out how we can find those answers. And one thing that we really highly recommend, like we've said, is trying out things, letting your students do things, make mistakes, and learn along the way, because it's going to be much better for them to make those mistakes in, say, a Banzai game or something like that, or in your classroom, than it's going to be in the real world. Yeah, and along with that comes this idea of seeking out training and personal development. Obviously, you guys are here. We're so excited to have you and to continue with stuff like this, but there's a lot of other opportunities for you to continue to learn stuff. Going back to Jumpstart, they have a program called Jumpstart Financial Foundations for Educators. It's free, it's comprehensive, content-based professional development program, and it's designed to help you improve your knowledge of personal finance topics. If anyone wants to look up that, it's Jumpstart Financial Foundations for Educators, just to repeat that one more time so that you could hear it. And yeah, the whole idea is that you can get on that and you can increase your own financial knowledge proficiency and learn more about some of these potentially more complicated or intimidating topics. Also, like we said, this is our first PD webinar. We're going to be doing these all throughout the summer, all throughout the coming months. We'd love to have you join us, even if you're not able to join us on the day of. If you sign up, we'll be sending you out a recording of it later. And this is sort of the precursor to us starting up an even bigger and more extensive PD training program where we hope to help you guys find even more confidence, connect with even more teachers, and learn more.
And learn, yeah, and us learn too. We're hoping to keep conversations going with all of you and learn from you and what you're experiencing in the classroom.
Yeah, so with that in mind, we're super, super excited about this one. Our next webinar is going to be called Connecting with Students from Underserved Communities. And in it, we're going to be having a conversation with Caroline Dennis, who is the founder and executive director of New Journey Foundation. New Journey Foundation, I'm just going to read their description. It's a 501c3 organization born out of a passion and desire to educate marginalized communities with the knowledge and resources needed to create financially healthy individuals, families, businesses, and communities. We've had a couple conversations here with Caroline ourselves, and she is just so awesome. She's so knowledgeable about what she's interested in, what she's passionate about. And yeah, her whole passion and New Journey's whole mission, yeah, is to like help students who maybe come from these underserved communities, who maybe have even more barriers to financial independence or understanding complex financial topics, and really making sure that the content is relevant and helpful to them. That's going to be our next webinar in June, and we will be sending out invitations to that when it gets a little bit sooner, but we really hope to see you guys there. It's going to be an awesome one.
Yeah, we're excited to not only share this PD webinar with y'all with Caroline, who is incredible, but also to keep building resources that help you reach those students in your classroom. Those underserved communities include communities like Indigenous, Hispanic, Black, rural communities. Those students, there's sometimes like cultural divides, or we can't paint financial literacy with a broad brush. It really is personal. And so that's something that she's going to kind of help us all figure out how to connect with these students. So the last problem, sorry, the last problem that we're going to talk about, and one that I'm actually really excited to talk about, is engaging students in the FinLit classroom. So traditional teaching methods, like how do those work? If you give a kid a textbook, how does that go? Probably not that great, but depends on the kid. Or in the case of a lot of, especially middle and high school, they learn about these financial literacy concepts, but they're not actually practicing them until they graduate. How can we let them practice in the classroom so that they're actually more prepared? So some of the ways that we can increase engagement that we're going to chat about is to embrace technology, gamification, and then making your curriculum relevant. So here is a really interesting poll. This was done by the Pew Research Center. This is a 2023 survey. And as you can see, many teens are on social media every day, if not constantly. That dark blue is constantly. Daily use does vary, but about 7 in 10 US teens say they visit YouTube every single day. And closely behind that is TikTok. This is what our students are engaging with, right? Is social media. We all know that, but it is kind of jarring to see this survey, just how much teenagers are using social media platforms. And then a different survey from the Pew Research Center found that a third of adults under 30 get their news from TikTok, which I think is interesting. So what does that mean? I think it would be fun if we could watch a few of the TikToks that your students might be seeing. So hopefully this all technically works well, but let's look at this one first. Okay, hopefully you guys have enough time to read that. I'm gonna start it over actually.
Let's pause it. Yeah, so you can
that's
read
smart.
it. How about I'll just read it out loud just in case it's too small for anyone to see or anything like that. It says, don't pay bills that are in collections. Let me explain why. Once your debt has been sold to a third-party debt collector, the creditor can no longer collect on that debt. They sold your debt to a collection agency. You don't know who they are because you never agreed to anything with them. You can send dispute letters to delete it from your credit report. If you dispute the collection, you no longer have to pay the debt. Pursuant to the Fair Debt Collection, blah, 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 legal stuff that he felt like he needed to have.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all financial literacy educators, right? Like, we know that there's some truth in what this fella is saying, but we also know that you can get sued by a debt collector, and there can be some pretty gnarly consequences. So it's probably not good to just
to paint this with the broad brush that's saying, oh yeah, but like as soon as your bills have to go to collections, you don't have to pay them anymore. It's fine.
In fact, to a young person who's maybe doesn't have a lot of experience with finances, could this be like, well, why don't I just take on debt and not pay it? Because once it goes to collections, I'm off the hook. And you and I and you, we know that that's not true, but would a student without that much experience? Here's another one. This one is really fun.
No problem. I told the IRS that I am non-taxable. That's not the same thing as tax exempt, because if you're tax exempt, you're asking permission to not pay taxes. But I am non-taxable because I am a living woman who does not reside in the DC zip code. I sent it as an affidavit, so I gave the IRS ample time to respond to me if they have any rebuttal at all. And if I do not get a response, then I assume that, I can continue living out my rights as a non-taxable living woman.
So there's that. So what can we glean from content like this? This is something I've been thinking about a lot. This is the content that students are engaging with, that teenagers are engaging with all the time. Young adults too. It's these finfluencers that can kind of say whatever they want. There's nobody regulating that space. And so they could get some really bad advice.
Yeah.
And especially popular right now on YouTube is investing advice. And it can be really dangerous to just start day trading without really knowing what you're doing, because somebody on YouTube said they made $3 million in a year.
Yeah. And it's important to note, like we said, some of these things that they're talking about may be true for them or may be true for some people. The thing to realize though is, yeah, like Nicole said, when it's not being regulated, when there's no other side of the conversation, when there's no sort of critical media literacy lens being brought to these things, it's like, oh, so that must be true for me. And that can, if that's sort of the foundation that a student builds to start making other decisions off of, that can be really dangerous and have potentially really large consequences for them.
Yeah, but it's really attractive content. It's fun. It is something that they're engaging with all the time. We're on TikTok, we see the funny dance video, and then we see some financial literacy advice.
And it's done in the same way. I don't know if you guys are big TikTok watchers. I am. I will raise my hand and admit it. And all of them are, presented in these same kind of formats. The guy just walking with the music in the background, you'll see 10 videos like that. And a bunch of them could be true, a bunch of them could be false, but there's no distinguish between them. Same thing, a person talking about their own experience. Again, a bunch of those could be true. A bunch of those could be totally made up things that maybe the person doesn't even believe. But it's this idea that it's all presented in the same way to the students constantly. And we can't just leave them on their own to figure it out and decide what's true and what's not.
Yeah. But there is some light at the end of this social media tunnel, which is that you can be a curator. Not only can you teach your students media literacy when they're engaging with this type of content, and you're teaching them the foundations of strong personal finance and financial literacy in your classroom so they can see something and be like, wait, that doesn't sound right. But you can also find this content and kind of guide them in that direction. I know that most districts would not let you go to TikTok
And just
on your
scroll
web
endlessly.
server. But there are ways that you can find videos that are good, that have good advice or share something positive and download them and onto like a hard drive, bring it into your classroom and kind of show what good financial literacy looks like on TikTok. So here are a couple examples that I really liked.
You're 25 years old and you don't have a credit card? Duh, I don't want to get charged interest rates. You know you only get charged if you don't pay on time. What? Are you serious? Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. I don't want to get a credit card because I don't want to go into credit card debt. I just told you, you don't get into debt if you pay on time. Just because you have a credit card doesn't mean you're going to go into credit card debt. Why would I use a credit card if I can just use a debit card instead? It's to build your credit. Oh. What's that mean? It's so if you want to make a big purchase like a car or a house in the future, your bank will trust you and loan you some money. Ooh. I don't get it.
So obviously, you still have to lead the student through that kind of content. Just because you can build credit with a credit card doesn't mean you should get a credit card and just put everything on it all the time and never pay it off. And so it's emphasizing those parts of the video. Hey, he's saying pay it off. Make sure that you're not accruing credit card debt. That will help you build credit. And that kind of context really helps the student understand this content. And then this is another one I liked.
I don't feel like also with investing, it's about time put in. So if you start really early and do it for 5 years, you have a better rate of feeling like some sort of benefit than if you do it for like 2 years or like 1 year. So start early.
Words of wisdom.
Start early, put it in for as long as you can, and then yeah.
And then that can be your deposit for your house or your car.
Exactly, or like pension or whatever you need money for.
So I like that this is a really common trend in TikTok and YouTube and other social media where it's some person with a mic going into the street, candidly asking people a question. It's really popular. A lot of videos do this. And to have someone saying, hey, it's better to invest for a long time than try to get money really quickly, that's good advice. And you can start a discussion about that with your students. Why do you think that is? What are ways that you can invest? Sorry, what are ways that you can think of why that would be a good idea? Or you can even use that to start a conversation about retirement. But so another thing we want to talk about, of course, is to make learning fun with gamification. Students love games. We all love games. I love games. And when you can bring something like a game into the classroom and make it fun, obviously students are going to be a lot more engaged.
Especially with a topic like financial literacy that can be taken, a couple different ways. It can be stuffy and boring and why would I want to do this? Or it can be something that like instantly triggers a lot of stress. Like a lot of students have sort of this built-in stress to talking about money. It could have been because of a relationship at home. It could just be from that, I know that this is really important, but I don't even know where to begin. So this can be a fun way to, even if it's just what starts the conversation and gets you going. It's a really good way to take a potentially intimidating or potentially boring topic
Or stressful, like you said.
Yeah, and make it much more approachable.
Yes. Yeah. So, of course, that's something that you can do with Banzai. Many of you already use Banzai, and so this is our life scenarios game. This is like we get to practice these decisions before we have to make them in real life, but you can win or you can lose, and that kind of makes it fun and challenging. There's also, we have a lot more games, including this is banking. So in this game, you play as a student that has decided to start their own bank. And you set interest rates and you open different products, and eventually you'll even have the chance to like offer CDs to other students at your school. And it takes something like the banking industry that is complicated and difficult to approach, and it makes it kind of fun. Hey, we're just gonna like play bank for a minute and learn about checking accounts and savings accounts and CDs and loans and how a bank makes money by kind of pretending to be one. So this is a game that if you haven't seen yet, I recommend you check it out. It's super fun. And then just, really quick, since I have you here, if you haven't seen our Consumer Smarts game, This recently won an Excellence in Financial Literacy Education Award.
For
This-
game of the year.
For Game of the Year. So this is one that we think is pretty fun too, where you play as a student who has to manage your family's budget by making wise consumer decisions. So it goes beyond budgeting, where you're creating a budget and you're trying to fit your, your spending within the budget. And it kind of takes that one step further and says, how do you make wise spending decisions? How do you find a trusty website? What about consumer reviews? What about buying in bulk versus individually? And it kind of walks the student through those consumer decisions.
Yeah, and again, it lets you try out working with a budget and kind of making those decisions, maybe that like even us who are always working with a budget don't really think about because you're just kind of in your routine. And
Yeah.
it lets you try them out and be like, oh, I didn't realize it would have been cheaper if I had done this, or oh, I can see why this was potentially, not the best move I could have made, or things like that.
Or, oh, I signed up for a trial subscription and I forgot to cancel, and now I have to pay $60, and that's all stuff that the student will experience in this game. We have a lot more games coming out too. And then, yeah, so I guess I just wanted to kind of call those out, especially since so many of you are Banzai teachers. Just be looking out for more games that you can bring into the classroom. Also, a way to engage students is to make it relevant. You can talk about your own experiences. That's something that relates a lot to a lot of different students. If a student can have a teacher that says, hey, I didn't understand student loans, or I didn't know what a 401k was when I first started a job, and so this is a decision that I made, or something, it makes it seem a lot less scary and a lot more relatable, and something that they can be like, oh, okay, I don't have to know everything right away. And they get to relate to you. Other ways to make it relevant is, for example, if you make like a mock budget. Don't take national averages of a one room apartment. Look at the rent prices for your area. What is it actually like to live in your area? What about groceries? Making it relevant to your community and to, your life and their lives is going to be really helpful. And then also, if you are a Banzai teacher, which many of you are, you can invite your sponsor to come into the classroom and give a presentation on budgeting or credit or saving or a bunch of other topics. And your sponsor is going to have a name or be associated with an organization that is in your community. It's going to be a credit union that your students have heard of. Maybe their parents bank with them. Maybe they have an account with them. And so that also kind of ups that relevancy. And then, so I've talked a lot about sharing stories in that making it relevant, but also, again, emphasizing share your stories. It is so much more impactful when you can make a connection between concepts and everyday life. So your real life stories, your wins, your losses, if you're comfortable sharing them, they're all going to relate a lot to your student.
Yeah, and one thing that's really unique about personal finance, unlike something maybe like calculus or things like that, like you may not be interacting with calculus or other topics, plenty of other topics in your everyday life, but like personal finance is personal and we're all interacting with it every single day, whether we want to or not. We're all making rent and mortgage payments and buying groceries and, things like that. And so it's something that's so personal and so relatable that that's something that you should be taking advantage of in your classroom as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. And to kind of close out this section, and also in a big way, some of the webinar, although the gift card is still coming, so you should stick around. But I thought it would be interesting or helpful if I shared a story of my own. Because I keep talking about sharing personal finance stories, I should probably share one. And so we are based in Utah. Mallory and I are actually both native Utahns. Sorry, I was gonna say like we're desert girlies, but that's silly. But excuse me, Utah was the first state to pass a financial literacy mandate. They passed it in 2003. And so I took a personal finance class in high school. Just as a little bit of background, I came from a household with a single mom. She never had a bank account. every Friday, she would go to the check to cash store next to the 7-Eleven, and she would go in with her check and come out with a wad of cash. And then we would just like cross our fingers and hope we could keep it around until the next Friday. And that's just how I grew up. And I didn't know about opening a savings account or buying a car or anything like that with my lived experience. But I was required to take financial literacy. And my teacher was the auto and woodshop teacher. And all he did was play Ramsey YouTube videos. And they weren't like the Ramsey for schools. It was just like straight up his radio show. And he played it all day. And that was my financial literacy. But I graduated knowing how to open a bank account and knowing the dangers of credit cards and how to use them responsibly, and knowing that if I bought a car brand new and drove it off the lot, it would depreciate a bunch right away. And those are just basic concepts that I wouldn't have learned at home, but I learned from a teacher that I think that all of you care a lot more than my teacher is what I'm trying to say. And so I believe strongly that teachers that are trying to bring personal finance into the classroom can and will make a difference in their students' lives, because it made a difference in mine. And that's something I feel really strongly about. And I just wanted to share with all of you today.
So with that kind of in mind, you don't actually have to type this into the chat, obviously,
No.
but we just want to encourage you guys to be thinking like, what are the personal stories about your financial literacy journey that you could share with your students? Like, is there something that you feel like, oh man, I remember when I was in school and I have a friend, I share this story a lot. I have a friend who, after she got married, found out that her husband had financed their entire college career on credit cards. And, that was obviously a big financial, burden that they had to overcome together. So just something, the things like that you're like, I can be open about this, I can talk about this. What are the things that you can share with your students to help really make that personal finance personal and really connect it to them?
Yeah, well, and if you hear a story like that, that opens an opportunity for discussion. Why was that maybe not the best idea? Do you think it would have been better to do student loans over credit cards? Probably,
but like, why? What can we
why?
learn from that?
Yeah, and so it's those kinds of stories that can open discussions while making the whole topic more relatable to your students.
So with that in mind, like we've talked about before, one of the best ways that we feel, and we feel really strongly about this, for teachers to become better teachers and to learn more is to connect with each other. You guys have the experience in the classroom. You guys have all of the knowledge. We are here to try to support you and do the best that we can. But like at the end of the day, you guys are the experts. You guys know what you're doing. So we would really encourage you guys to share in the Q&A box here. And talk about your experiences in the classroom, talk about ways that you have found to make financial literacy relevant to your students. Form some connections, get some experience. What's the word I'm looking for? Inspiration from your fellow teachers here.
Or maybe share other obstacles that you've encountered that we didn't talk about today, or other barriers.
And we'll discuss all of those kind of at the end. We're nearing the end here, so we're going to open up for a few more questions there at the end. So with that in mind, some just additional tips. Start with the basics. You don't have to dive into the biggest, most complicated, jarring things at the end. Start with the idea that like, hey, income is when you earn money from a job or from something, and then you have to take that money and you have to decide how to spend it, and that's a budget. And yeah, beginning with those basics, making it easy for your students to sort of find the way into this big, potentially overwhelming topic and find the way that they can easily relate it to themselves or their own lives. 3 and 4, 75% of US adults selected spending and budgeting as the most important topic area or personal finance education during high school, per that poll that we referenced earlier, which is crazy. You think about all of the things that you learn about in school, it's so much, but as we've kind of said, this is something that is so directly and easily applicable to our lives that it's really important. And it's not the big complicated things, it's spending and budgeting and things like that.
Spending and budgeting, like just to emphasize that it's not investing or day trading or cryptocurrency, the things that we all wish that we learned in school, spending, budgeting, saving,
Yeah, to go over that same poll, to kind of go over it. So 75% selected spending and budgeting. Below that was managing credit at 55%, saving at 49%, earning income at 47%, investing 33%, and managing risk 12%. Like, it's all of these really foundational things. It's just like, I wish that I had the most basic understanding of that. And that will at least start me to be able to have this firm foundation that I'll build the rest of my knowledge on. And then just this idea of active learning. You guys all know about this. Kids' attention spans are shorter than they've ever been. There's more challenges than there's ever been. So just do everything that you can using games, using things like, referencing TikToks or things that they're learning about already to engage your students and encourage that active learning. So it's not just, sitting back and listening and being like, yeah, whatever. Put them into groups, put them into discussions, have them talk about, like, what do you already know about credit? What do you already know about investing? Like, where did you learn that from? Do you think that that's true? Okay, let's talk about it. The more that you can sort of get them engaged in this, the better. And just to kind of wrap this all up, as we've talked about, financial literacy is a critical life skill. Teaching your students even the basics of financial literacy will help them make informed decisions and set them on a path for lifelong learning and financial wellness, and just being able to make better decisions overall. So we really want to encourage you to hopefully take the summer off, have a chance to sort of refresh and reboot, and then come back with some new, fresh ideas about how to teach financial literacy.
Also, thank you for being here and sticking it out to the end with us. This is kind of our pilot webinar for our PD program. Everyone will be receiving a certificate who is attending for professional development requirements. So, but just thank you. And yeah, sorry.
No, yeah. If there's any questions that you guys would like to discuss with others, please drop it into the Q&A. We'll spend a few more minutes here discussing it. And then after this, we will do the giveaway for the gift card, and then we'll send you guys all on your way.
Yeah. Follow us on social. We're doing more giveaways like that all the time. If we are at a conference in your area, make sure to come. We have a spin wheel and a prize wheel.
And we'd love to chat with you about your experience. Like we said,
Yes, absolutely.
A big part of our goals is to learn from you guys, to figure out the best ways that we can help you guys teach students better. That's our whole goal. So we'd love to chat with you, whether that's in person or through this, or by reaching out to us specifically. Follow us on LinkedIn, send us an email, however else you can connect with us. We'd really love to chat with you guys.
And for real, you can just send us an email straight to our inbox. We would love to talk with you, or to LinkedIn, however works. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for attending. We're super, super glad. We hope to see you, like we said. Gosh, can I get back to that one with our next? It's
June.
Gonna take a while.
Caroline.
Our next one will be, there she is. Again, connecting with students from underserved community. We're gonna be talking with Caroline Dennis from the New Journey Foundation. She's awesome. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you all so much again for coming.
Yes,
and
thank you. We really appreciate your support of Banzai and you supporting this PD effort. So
thank you so much. Have a good Wednesday.
bye.